Yes, hello again. It is me, John, the person who is trying to mix and record at the same time, doing a terrible job. This is episode 2 of my evening with Evan Lofback on the Great Railway Chinwag, which is the name of the show, if I didn't cover that before. In this, you're going to hear me mistake Ed Burns for George Burns. And then Evan tells a joke. It's pretty bad. You guys will enjoy that. And we'll talk a little bit about the backstory, about how he was able to do some of the interviews and some of the people that he talked to. I will then spend 10 minutes explaining to Evan how the Final Cut Pro Ken Burns edit works and how I use it. And then he'll discuss some things that he would change if he were going to go back and retell the entire story. Other things that Durango is, other things Evan has found interesting to shoot. Some of my experience with firing oil at the Durango in Silverton, and then also my description of what I believe that the Royal Hudson looks like. Enjoy.
I agree. I think the trailers were the turning point because it's like we put something out that actually grabbed people's attention. And I think that's when we kind of got the support of the museum and, you know, started making more headway.
Right. Okay, so
it's funny. I want to mention one of those trailers. I can't remember if it was the first or I think it was the first trailer. There were 2 or 3 of them. And like it just had a totally different feel than what the documentary ended up being. Right. Like it was this kind of modern, futuristic kind of suspense feel to it. Yeah. It's hard to describe, but then, you know, the actual thing is like, you know, banjos and guitars.
Yes. Banjos and guitars. You know, my favorite 2 kinds of instruments to put into rail fan videos. Okay. All right. So moving on just a little bit. You think that it should be shorter. Mm-hmm. You'd remove a couple little sections of it. And just to kind of recap a little bit, what maybe...
Oh, I think the end could have been probably cut in half too. I think we spent... It was weird to try and explain the transition from like restoration. We got some... Yeah, like we got some cool stuff, but it felt like it moved. It was awkward how it moved as far as like, okay, here's it on its first test run out of the shop. Here's it on opening day. Here's it on its first mainline test.
Yeah, and to me personally, like I know the people that are in those shots and the people that.
So that's actually the more interesting part to you.
To me, a little bit, yeah, because I remember seeing George.
Yeah,
who's shop foreman there, you know, and I know him and have a lot of respect for him. And there's a lot of other people there that you didn't wind up getting on camera. That had a lot to do with that program. And we'll get into that in a second. But I would you make a part 2? And
no,
okay,
sorry. I just I mean, I'm glad that I did it, but I wouldn't do it again.
Gotcha.
Like it was a lot of work. I this is gonna sound bad, but I think that I have more of a life now than I did then. And I just don't have the time or the energy.
Because you're 28.
I'm an old man.
All right. Now, what you just said, ignore what you just said.
Okay.
Let's go back to 7-year-old Evan when you made this. If you made this again, would you follow the same style of presentation, or is there another style that you think would be more interesting?
I don't know. Here's my problem. This is going to sound strange coming from someone who wrote and directed and released a feature-length documentary. I'm not a creative person. Like I'm really good at mimicking people.
Right.
So like if someone like, and that's kind of what happens. Like, you know, I was on a Ken Burns kick, so I mimicked him. And that's why the documentary looks the way that it does.
Right. It's a good thing we're not like an Ed Burns kick or something. That's an 80s joke, I think. I don't even know if I got his name right. That's a terrible joke. I should just cut this out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I just pity laughed because I didn't really know what you were talking about.
Yeah, I think he was like this old guy. He wore like a bow tie and he smoked a cigar a lot and was like a womanizer.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds...
It's terrible.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
If anybody listens to this more than me and you and
perhaps your wife before she like slaps you in the face and like makes you stop listening to
Oh
us.
man, she would. I guarantee you. Like, I'll probably try to make her listen to this, and she will have checked out probably about 30 minutes ago.
Well, the challenge to me is to ask questions that I feel are interesting enough and also are natural. I would like to ask
Yeah.
questions, have enthusiasm,
Yeah.
and be natural.
What was your
Use of questions. Lesson 3. Inside joke. Anyway.
So, I mean, I'll say this. I haven't come across a documentary style that has just blown me away.
What about The Office?
That's a mockumentary.
No, it's a documentary. That's real.
Okay, John.
No, I'm serious. Like that was a real show. Like that was a paper company that was like going out of business, and they were able to save it. You know, and kind of shows all. That's an amazing show. Like you should watch that if you haven't seen it before. It was on. I think they even created it on NBC. Like there's still a podcast about it too. Yeah, but you know, the paper
Two
business.
of the actresses in the show.
There's like you know, paper is like kind of like a commodity that you don't know if it's going to survive, and like, you know, you got steam engines, same kind of thing. You got people and blah blah blah. Doing stuff with trains.
I feel fairly confident in saying that I would not redo this documentary Office style.
Why not?
I'm a serious man.
No, you're not. I'm making you laugh.
Well, I mean, I'm serious when I want to be.
Don't be my mom.
And when I'm creating documentaries about steam locomotives, I'm a serious man.
Oh my goodness. You know, this is coming from an industry that has embraced a stupid thing that's painted blue with a face on it.
It's a moneymaker.
Well, oh my goodness. Okay, so did you get like any criticisms afterwards? Like criticisms, praise, blah blah blah, but like what are some that you don't disagree with?
That it was too long.
Right.
I mean that I think I heard that from I think my mother told me that. Which I don't blame her. But yeah, it's definitely too long. I mean, I personally think like especially and some people, a lot of people would probably disagree with me on this. I personally think that we put way too much importance on what a steam locomotive is. You know, the old trope about it's just, you know, it's like the closest thing to a living being that man has ever created. I don't know. Maybe that's true, but
don't get me started on that.
Yeah, but
that's a whole field that we can explore and scythe with a scythe.
Yeah. I mean, I want to make people feel good. I want to make people feel happy, but I also don't want to spread something that I honestly don't. I think I believed it at the time. Not so much these days. Like, okay. I mean, they're cool. They're cool machines. Like, I probably am coming off as though like I hate steam locomotives. I don't. I really do enjoy them. But
yeah, that's totally the impression that I've just been given by you.
Yeah.
The 17 different topics that we've covered.
I feel like I wasn't a very balanced person at the time.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm much more balanced now, which is part of the reason I wouldn't do it again.
I think that that's something that every like adult, which you have now become, you know, feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you ever look back at something from your childhood and think, you know, that at the time you thought it was a great idea, and now you're like, oh, that is so embarrassing. I can't believe I did that.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I guess I don't feel quite that way about the documentary. Like that would make it sound like I really don't like it or regret it. Right. And that's not the case. I kind of look back and I think, man, what was I doing with my time? Like, why did I think so many of these things were so important?
What do you think I do every day? I'm unemployed at the moment.
Well, you have a good excuse.
Well, yeah, we can get into that at some point. But for now, I cannot legally talk about that.
And podcasts are cooler than documentaries.
Podcasts? Is this a podcast? I don't even know. I did one rim shot. I haven't sold anybody.
You have a theme song.
I do have a theme song, but it's way too loud. I got to mix that in later and post.
See if you can like get it published on Apple Podcasts.
I mean, I could, but I'd rather just see if somebody wants to pay $1 to listen to it.
No one's gonna pay money to listen.
No, nobody's gonna pay it. Like, not even Harry's.
Not
the
to
people.
me.
And speaking of Harry's, have you shaved? Just kidding. I hate their razors, by the way. I'd rather use Dollar Shave Club. But okay, so we covered if you would change a presentation, different style, maybe. Nah, you liked Ken Burns. You liked Fraggle Rock. That was before your time. Never mind. Are there any criticisms that you disagree with that you maybe remember? I know that a lot of people have said that, it was too long.
I mean, I got to be honest. I don't remember. Well, okay, I'll say this. I've definitely heard, and I didn't even hear this criticism until years after the documentary was released. But I have heard from some people that they think that the people that were interviewed were there wasn't enough variety, basically.
Gotcha.
And it's not even that I disagree with that criticism. It's just like people weren't jumping out of the bushes to be interviewed by us, Like at the time, I don't think anybody really cared.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, now that we released it and it's popular, people would come to us and be like, well, why didn't you interview me? It's because you didn't care when we were making it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's probably the only thing that kind of is annoying to me.
How did you make yourself available to maybe present yourself as somebody that would like to interview you? Like, say, I called you and I said, hey, I want to do like this. Try this out tonight. We're recording this. And, I called you because I have your phone number. But
so, gosh, I'm trying to remember. How did we get our foot in the door? Well, it was through Robert. Right. And Robert was good friends with Jason. Mm-hmm. And Jason Sapchinsky, one of the people that we interviewed in the documentary. And, Jason, I still don't know what his official title was down there. There was kind of a debacle around that, actually.
He was a contractor.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he was a contractor, but as far we gave him a title in the documentary, and there was some disagreement between different individuals about what that title should have been.
Right.
That almost sunk the whole thing, actually. And so, anyways, he had enough authority down there that we could get into the shop and hang around and take footage, film them working on the engine, painting it, all that good stuff. And I think a lot of people around the shop, because I was respectful, I think they tolerated my presence.
Yeah. What time of the day was this?
Oof. Gosh, I'm trying to remember back. I think the first time we went down there was the night that they painted the engine.
Okay.
I mean, it was typically in the evening.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I know at the time that those guys were working primarily later in the day. And usually the normal crew is more kind of morning till, mid-afternoon shift. And at the time, too, I wasn't working there yet either. So I don't know exactly what was going on. But some of the people that I worked with over the years since, that they would not have been on that schedule. Mm-hmm. Or they would have been on the road with the other engine.
Yeah. And I mean, I also want to point out that, even though I'm not, these people who are like, well, why didn't you interview me? Mm. Even though I feel like I have a fair point in saying, you didn't care. I also see their side of it, which is they had no reason to care at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'd have looked at what I was doing and thought, I'm not going to waste my time on that guy sitting down to interview with him. He's flying a drone around the shop like an idiot. Right. Almost running into people standing on the boiler trying to, mask off the sand domes or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I don't know who that would have been, but I wasn't around yet, so I couldn't tell you. But okay, so did you? It's got, like you said, it's got millions of views. Did you expect that?
Oh, no.
No.
No, not at all. I am still Chuck and I both like he messages me. We don't like super stay in touch.
Right.
But he'll message me every now and then and be like, "Have you seen how many views the documentary has?" Typically, when we cross like every 500,000 views or something, I'll hear from him.
Yeah, so that's my question too. Is like at the time it was fairly an exciting time to be in this part of the country. If you liked this stuff because you had
21st Century Steam.
Yeah, and I guess that's the question.
Although, actually, I mean, by the time the doc was released,
the 611 is already underway.
Well, I think that 4501 saw the last of its mainline mileage before we released the doc, because we've got that whole snippet at the end about how, in whatever year it was, the Norfolk Southern stopped the program.
Yeah. You're kind of skipping ahead on some questions I had for you, but like,
oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. But you don't know what my questions are. Pipe it down.
This is true.
Sip that drink that's made out of smoke. I will have a sip as well. I like the little ball here with the spear and the cherry. I feel like a pirate. Delicious.
I've got a joke for you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That you're going to need to prepare the rim shot for.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
All right.
It comes directly from my boss.
Should I do it now?
Shout out to Joel Marshall of Tusk Software, because neither he nor any of his compatriots will ever listen to this.
You don't know that.
I don't really know that, but I'm pretty sure. He told me this joke. He says, "What's a pirate's favorite letter?"
No, please don't say R.
What's a pirate's favorite letter, John?
Oh, I don't want to say.
I need you to answer the question.
Do pirates have air horns?
Just answer the question.
No, I don't want to. This is terrible.
Say it.
No.
Say it.
I want to do an air horn instead.
No. Say it. It's not going to go the way you think it is.
Oh, my. A pirate's favorite letter is probably P, because that's the first letter in their name.
Actually, they're fairly fond of the C.
Well, there you go.
Is this over yet?
No, it's not. All right, that worked out all right. Okay, I got maybe 5 or 6 more questions, but some of them are a little bit silly, as you should probably expect by now.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, covered some of the junk. There's some guy flying a drone, using it to tape off the sand dome. I wasn't even allowed to do that when I worked there, so.
At one point they had me up on the engine helping them mask off the cab. And I did a horrible job. Like, if there is crap paint on the engineer's side of the boiler right where it meets the cab, that's my fault.
Okay.
But I actually think that's why they kind of accepted me, because I wasn't just there to film. Like, I was like, you know what? I'm going to jump in and help.
Right.
And they were okay with that.
Yeah, things have changed there, definitely. I mean, we're talking nearly 10 years ago. So just, company policies and safety rules and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I think even at the time I was a little surprised. But they were also, you got to remember, like, they were on a deadline because they were trying to get the thing out the door for Railfest.
Yeah.
And they were just running way behind. Like, they were cutting it so close. So I think they were willing to take any help they could get.
Yeah. Well, I got comments I could say I cannot. I would love to share, and I will tell you.
Yeah. I mean, for the record,
things.
like, I was not under the impression that I was doing anything that was against the rules.
Correct. All right. So anyway, you the people that you were able to interview, you had access to the sum. You've got the people that.
Oh, I hope you ask me a question about my interviewees.
Oh, I will.
Because I've got a good story.
And if I don't ask it, then you should bring it up. But let me just say this. Of the people that you did talk to, and then after you answer this question, tell me what you would like to about it. You had access to certain people that did give you their interviews. And, you know, like some of them I know pretty well. I've worked, you know, an extensive amount and have a lot of respect for. Will sing their praises.
Yeah.
Who of those people, I mean, I probably have different people in mind than you do. You've already mentioned some specific names. But who do you think in your mind or in your experience, just from being somebody that does not work on this stuff or is maybe inside the GERF industry, who do you think represented the engine the most?
Oh.
Or represented even just the story, and maybe not the story that wound up, you know, being told. Like, you know, you can look back on it.
So, I mean, I think it depends on the era.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously for the period, you know, in the 60s, like Robert Sewell was the guy. Because he was there for a lot of it.
You're talking about Bob Sewell, like dad, who helped kind of get everything started back in the day.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Not Robert, who you interviewed.
Well,
I'm just trying to
but you're
clarify.
asking like who of the interviewees best represented him, right? So,
Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah. So like Robert was probably the guy who best represented that period of time.
Okay.
That, or I mean, Grady,
Yeah.
Rip. I heard
Grady was awesome.
Yeah, I heard that he passed a few years ago. It was very sad. But I mean, he was a great interview. Well, he was a good interview.
Yeah.
He's a character.
Grady, I did not get to know too well. But that dude has some cool stories. Like
Yeah.
I enjoyed whenever he would show up, you know, like a lunch break and just coming out
Yeah.
and you know, he would
Yeah, and I think
say
that's-
stuff that was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how that went. Interesting.
Oh
You know?
yeah. I think that we only knew about him because we were hanging out at the shop
Yeah.
during those final days of them trying to get the engine out the door. And
Right.
like he would just show up and kind of hang out.
Right.
And we would chat with him. And then I think we finally realized like, oh, like this guy has been around
Right.
forever.
Finding those guys is
Yeah.
very difficult.
Yeah. And I think Robert ultimately confirmed like what his role was and what his background was and
Yeah.
everything. And he was like, you need to interview him.
Yeah. No, Grady was a good dude.
Yeah. So that's what we did, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
It kind of stunk. We had really bad sound quality for his interview. Actually, we had bad everything quality for his interview.
Just like this. I mean, it's better than this. This sounds like junk.
I don't think it was better than this. But I mean, we made it work with a lot of editing.
You did. Yeah. I mean, it was professional.
I appreciate that.
I mean, I did a video with an iPhone and made up a narration about fried chicken recipes, so I can't really
Yeah.
say that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, as for like maybe like the 70s, 80s, 90s, I think that George probably maybe best represented that. I mean, Steve Freer too. Like
Yeah.
you know.
And those guys were around that whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, they both had really great information.
I mean, George has really helped TVRM become what it is,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, and then I mean, even progressing even further than that, you know, for like the actual modern day 21st century stuff, I think that, you know, Tim was probably the best interview for that.
Okay.
Because he was like involved in the conversations with Wick. And you know, that's the story I'm getting around to is Tim actually put us in touch with Wick.
Nice.
And it was the trippiest thing ever for a 20-year-old GERF
Now
to
look at you, just keep doing with that.
to check his email one day and have an email from Wick Mormon.
Right.
And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And you know, I was trying to play it cool and act all professional and everything.
You're fangirling.
Because I didn't reach out to him. Like Tim didn't give me Wick's email address, obviously.
Right.
He gave my contact info to Wick, and apparently Wick thought enough of the project. Like he went and checked us out, and he decided to email me and actually try to set up an interview.
Well, like I said, I mean, those trailers were very professional looking, you know, and like I'm not a big Ken Burns fan.
Boo.
I don't care.
Have you watched the Civil War?
No, I wasn't alive yet.
The Civil War series.
I've seen parts of it.
Because here's the thing.
Let me say this. I have watched the Community episode where they
mimic it. Yeah.
Where it's like Forts versus
Where they
Pillows.
riff on it. Yeah. I think that's the best Community episode in my humble opinion.
That one's fantastic. But no, I understand what you're saying. It's a style that he does, and I'll be honest, like I edit my videos with Final Cut, and it's definitely flattery to him that there is a crop edit that I constantly use that is titled Ken Burns. So
what's the deal with that edit?
Okay, so you can what
does it do?
Okay, so you can just imagine did you ever watch Reading Rainbow, or is that too long ago for you?
I did, but I barely remember it.
All right, do you remember the theme song?
Yeah.
It was Butterfly in the Sky.
Yeah.
I Can Go Twice as High.
Yes, I remember that.
Just take a look.
It's in a book.
A Reading Rainbow.
Yep.
Okay, good. We got that covered. Now, the thing was when they would read you. This is my LeVar Burton introduction to Ken Burns editing.
Okay.
So LeVar Burton is reading a story to me about like Abba Yo-Yo.
Okay.
Or some other picture. And then you've got like, it's a children's book. So children's books are primarily not words. It's an artist that they've hired to illustrate the story, which is what makes kids' books cool. And, as they're reading like on the page, they're like zoomed in on like the subject of what's being discussed. And then they would pan across the picture or maybe zoom out or zoom in, to kind of add that element of what you should pay attention to.
Yeah.
So think about all those like static Civil War photos that you're talking about in any Ken Burns documentary with the Civil War.
Yeah, yeah.
And it'll show like a man, he's got his hat on. He's on second shift for the war. And he's got to like...
As we know, being a soldier is
Yeah.
shift work.
Well, it was probably tea time, so it was probably 4:00 in the afternoon. So he had to make tea for the rest of his squad, and then it was back to it, bro. Get back on the line, and they'll zoom in on him, and he's looking all like, man, I'm out of tea bags. Like I don't have enough hardtack to eat.
Yeah,
I don't have enough dried out buffalo to feed my friend. What would be a good name for a Civil War guy? Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Jeremiah. Antonio.
No.
Yeah, I can't use Italian names, I guess. But yeah, I can use, like those old school Bible names. Like if he's like, Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Ezekiel and I got to go back on the patrol.
What are we talking about right now?
And but it's tea time, so we're gonna go back out in that side of the field, that line of trees. Keep an eye out for the enemy, but gotta keep sustained. So anyway, let's just imagine that there's a photograph that some Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, or I don't know, whatever the people are that
Did you just say photographer?
Yeah, photographer. The people that took pictures back then that didn't get shot somehow.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I think they were mostly there after the battles.
they had to be there. Like, it's not like, maybe they paused the war. Like I said, they had to take lunch breaks. So, anyway, like, you got the guy. He's standing in front of his tent, and he's, trying to make some buffalo casserole.
Okay.
For his crew. And
can you please explain this edit?
No, I'm not going to edit this at all. This makes sense.
No, I mean the Ken Burns edit. That's what you're trying to describe.
I am trying to describe it, but you keep interrupting me.
Well,
so he's standing in front of the tent, right? He's gonna make his buffalo casserole. He's got his casserole dish. It's a Le Creuset.
Morgan Freeman is
We're not going to
narrating.
focus on the brands that they used during the Civil War. I know that like
Morgan Freeman is having a discussion with Alec Baldwin.
Staub is actually probably a superior brand, but whatever. Anyway, so Morgan Freeman's talking about what would Morgan Freeman say? He'd probably be like, times like these were important for a soldier. Time to make sustenance and time to reflect. And it was these brief moments when a man could take nourishment and reflect on his beliefs and take to heart what was really at stake. And then they'll talk about, like, you know, the buffalo casserole he's going to make. It's going to have cheese, probably some breadcrumbs. You know, the buffalo that they shot that was probably like 1,800 miles out west that they hauled back east on a train. And then, you know, they cut it all up and put it in this souffle or this casserole. But the Ken Burns edit is basically zoom in on that guy standing in front of his tent, right? He's on his war break.
And like real slow zoom out.
And it's that zoom out, but it also kind of pans too.
Yeah.
That is the Ken Burns edit in Final Cut Pro. And
Thanks for explaining that.
And I use it constantly.
Yep.
So
it's a great edit. I'm telling you, we tried to go for that with like a lot of the old footage and photos that we had.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
And it's fun. And also half the time, like I wind up, because you can do like start and end. So you can, you know, go in or out.
Yeah.
And also depending on the media that you've got, like maybe it's not like, so it's enough pixels wide or whatever. Because, you know, most stuff I shoot is going to be in 4K. Unless it's old, and then you've got to try to figure out. So if I get like a photograph, you know, maybe it's a photograph from 2003, it's going to be like 640 by 380 or something dumb. And you've got to like blow it up and then it looks terrible. Anyway, that's the Ken Burns edit.
You just slapped your knee. You were so
I did
upset
slap my
about how terrible that photo quality is.
I did slap my knee, but all right, so you just explained to me 25 minutes ago who represented the documentary.
I never finished the Wick Mormon story.
Yeah, go ahead with the Wick Mormon thing. I'd like to know, because I've never met Wick.
He's the nicest guy ever, but I've never met him either.
Yeah.
All I know is what I know from the very few email exchanges I had with him. He was interested in doing an interview. I was working full time. It was a volunteer project. My producer, who had the good camera and microphone, lived in Birmingham.
Right.
And the days that Wick had available, I think he was going to be like visiting the NS offices in Atlanta, which, you know, at the time that was like more of a satellite office for them. But he was going to be down in Atlanta like in the middle of the week.
Right.
1 week. And like my producer and I just couldn't swing that because it was a volunteer project and we didn't have the paid time off for it.
Right.
So we never could make it work. And that was that.
Right on.
But I mean, you know, he was always like, the few emails we did exchange, he was very, very supportive and nice.
Nice. Okay. So next question I got for you. Do you feel that you were able to paint the whole picture, or did you feel limited by like the historical information that you were able to get access to, or the people that you were actually able to interview, and which comes across more to you in retrospect?
That's a good question. Oh man, I forgot to call out Donald Purdy.
You can stop flirting with me, Evan. I'm just asking you questions.
No. I forgot to call out Donald Purdy because he was also a very, very, very good interview. He may actually have been the best representative of the 70s and 80s time frame.
Yeah.
So I want to retroactively mention him.
Hello,
Donald.
Hello.
I hope he's listening to this. Also, really, really nice guy. So easy to talk to. Very willing to support the project. We had a lot of really great supporters.
Yeah, I only met him once back in 2011 at a like a big dinner that they had in Chattanooga. But yeah.
Well, anyway, I mean, yeah, I wish we had interviewed more people for sure. I think that's always going to get you a more well-rounded viewpoint on anything. But because we didn't, I honestly don't really know what we're missing. I'm sure we're missing things.
Yeah.
I just don't know what. I think that we probably did as well as we could have with like the really early days of the engine.
Right.
Because there's just not a lot of information. I mean, there's that one photo in Bull's Gap. And like,
Oh, right.
yeah, what year was that? Like 1918 or something? Might have been
I
1914.
think it was 1712 or something. It was a long time ago.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we did as well as we could have with the early days. I think we did really well with the K&T stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think we had some of the best K&T coverage of anybody. I mean, I don't know that I would ever compare our work to that of Mr. David P. Morgan, but
Yeah.
I was pretty happy with what we did.
Is there any way that you would like maybe try to figure out how to make sure that you got everyone that you thought would have like a good kind of well-rounded angle to add or perspective to add? And it's not to like make anybody look bad or look better, or it's just telling like the whole story.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll say, there were one of the things we definitely had to contend with were, politics.
Yeah, and that stuff is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, like I kind of alluded to it, like politics almost sunk the project a couple of times.
We will not go into that.
No, we
because
will
I don't
not.
Want to, I would like to be able to like make this.
No, I mean, and
available.
I don't want to paint anyone as the bad guy, because ultimately, at the end of the day, even when we got into that kind of issue, we were always just the middleman. Like I didn't know who was right or wrong, and I didn't care. Like I just wanted to get the documentary done and out the door.
Yeah.
So like, there's no hard feelings there at all.
Right.
So I don't care. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. Because at this point, like I already mentioned, I wouldn't do it again. So I've not really put a lot of thought into like how would I go about finding the people that would need to be interviewed.
Yeah.
I think that maybe at this point I'd have a little more street cred. Maybe not.
Because you drove me around while I did my kitchen, my fried chicken recipe video.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what I was thinking of.
Right.
Yeah, I roll with John Hillier.
No, well, I mean you do, but sometimes.
Yeah.
We've. You're making me laugh too much now.
And you've got street cred. So
No, I don't.
I mean, I think word of
The
mouth
only
is
street cred I've got is laid in the middle of the street last summer.
so. I mean, I'd like to think that word of mouth would probably, help a lot these days.
Okay, so what questions would you ask now to the same people that you already interviewed, and knowing that the outcome of the program ended in 2015?
Well, I think at least some of the interviews were recorded when the writing was already on the wall. So I think from that perspective, not much really would have changed.
Right.
What different questions would I ask? See, that's the other thing is I'm a bad interviewer.
So am I. This is the first time I've done this. And half these questions I didn't even necessarily write myself.
Really?
No, I mean I rewrote.
Did you Google it?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't Google them. I asked, just some friends that are either close to it or not close to it, or people that I respect professionally, what they would ask about a documentary about an engine that they've never seen or know anything about. And then I rewrote the questions, which I felt was more appropriately worded.
Yeah.
Because I used punctuation.
Well,
because there was a joke that I was told that by the time your video came out or your whatever, that the joke was, and then there was none.
why is that? I don't get it.
because the thing quit running in 2015.
Oh, that's a great joke.
Yeah. I
Okay, let me comment on this. I want this on the record. And, for like the one person that might still be listening at this point, I regret the name of the documentary.
Why?
Because in hindsight, it tells you nothing about what the documentary is about. And it's kind of just vague and cliche in a weird sort of way.
I mean, you could go back and rename it. Like, you have the access to the YouTube channel. You could you could be like, and then there was
here's
the
the thing.
45 number 01, which is not the 4503 or the 507. Like, you could rename it whatever you want.
So I will say this, that despite the fact that I regret the name of the documentary, I will say that it worked out okay for branding.
Yeah, it did. I thought it was clever enough. Like, it was good. You know?
Really? Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad. I think you're the first person who's ever actually said anything nice about the title.
Calm down. It's not that great.
Well, we had settled on the name before we got access. I had settled on the name before I got access to Robert's collection from his dad.
Yeah.
And it was really just a stroke of luck that he had a photo in there of his father painting the number 1 onto the tender.
That works.
And I think that was really kind of what cemented it.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if you look on our Facebook page, that's still our background photo. Because it just makes sense. Like, it's what ties the name to the theme.
I mean, I've known that engine since I was a little kid. I think the first time I saw it was probably... It might have possibly even been 84.
Green Machine.
I didn't realize that until the other day when I was talking to my dad about that 611 video that we were kind of talking over. But I don't have the book with me, but he says that the 01 came down to Jacksonville in 84.
I have the book somewhere. Is the book in here?
I've got it at my house too. I can find it later on, but anyway, like, I know that the first steam engine that I ever saw was a 750, which is a whole other story. You got some Febreze, and you got some dusting.
I don't know what
electronic
happened.
Stuff.
I bought all kinds of books when I was writing the script.
Right.
Obviously the DPM book was
The Steam's Camelot. Yeah.
I got Steam's Camelot by Ren, also RIP.
Yeah. I've got that book at home. Like, I use it for reference and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought that the name was fine. Like, I thought it was enough. Like, it matches the engine.
Oh, good.
It's a good marketing catch. Good job. Congratulations to you. I will. Let's do this different one. Yeah.
Thank you. How long did this go for?
Way too long. So
Okay. That was embarrassing for me.
It should be. Okay, so good job on the fact that you were a child and you made this, and you were able to talk to some important people, some people that I know, others that I do not, and many that I respect. So, that's cool.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, you're welcome. By the way, my microphone, I just realized, has the blue foam on it, and yours has the black. So you look way more professional than I do right now.
I have not thought about that once.
And I just did, because I just kind of looked at the microphone. But anyway, okay, so we're going to kind of change directions here.
Well, let me think if there's anything else I want to say about the doc.
Yeah, well, okay.
Open mic.
Well, okay, let me ask this then before I totally change directions.
Okay.
All right. You made like a highly viewed railroad documentary. What do you think in that category among what is done? I mean, granted, there's not many that are done to the length that you did, which you made a mistake on, as you already admitted to. But what do you think is overly done, and how would you argue that, the something that's like maybe like a trope now? If you were, say, like you lost your job, but you're gonna pour your heart into like making, railroad like safety videos or a documentary about the locomotive 1,017,004. How would you explain to somebody, like, how do you not overdo some of the things that are overdone? What do you think is overdone, first off?
Trains.
Oh, yeah, it's trains.
We don't need more railroad documentaries because all the good stuff has already happened. There's already videos about all the good stuff, and everything from here on out is garbage.
Maybe not. I don't know. I think some of the stuff.
Well, I mean, I guess not that long from now, we'll be looking back on good old 2022 and saying, man, remember when trains had people?
Right. And it was like a 2-man crew at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when there were signals? You could actually know when a train was coming.
Right. I think that those are stories that should be told. And, like I'm not the most qualified person to tell those because I don't, spend a lot of time around class 1 stuff.
This is very much a tangent, but it's funny, automation is always constantly in the back of, I think, most railroaders' minds these days. Yeah. But today I was at work, and for those that don't know, I am a software developer. And we were looking at a new tool. I think it's called ChatGPT, which, if you haven't heard of it, go look it up. It is a new AI tool that's text-based. You can literally talk to it about anything and ask it to do things for you, and it will just do them.
Will it make me bread?
You can ask it to do anything that results in a text response.
I've had to do a lot of cooking lately, like a lot.
No, it won't make you bread. I'm sorry. I put the screws to it about train dispatching today.
Oh, boy.
And it knew everything.
This is a can of worms.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I could take you down a rabbit hole, but
yeah.
It knew everything. Well, not everything. I asked it what the primary difference between American and European railroading was, and it said the primary difference between American and European railroading is that in Europe, the standard track gauge is, I think it was like 1,435 millimeters, and in America, the standard track gauge is 1,435 millimeters.
And we speak one language here.
Yeah. So it's, it gets some stuff wrong. And it always sounds really confident when it's wrong, which is another part of the problem. So, but here's the thing. You can actually give it text prompts and say, hey, write code in this language that does this. Mm-hmm. And it just does it. We actually, a team member of mine fed it prompts for some questions that we actually ask people in our coding interviews. Like when we interview someone to hire them, we give them a live coding test and we say, hey, here's the requirements. Can you write code that satisfies these requirements? Yeah. We gave it to this ChatGPT thing. It nailed it. Like it literally gave us the best possible response. And now we are terrified for our jobs. So
as a coder?
Yeah. So by the time, I guess all I'm saying is by the time, there are no engineers and conductors on trains and there are no line side signals, that I'll probably be living in a box under a bridge somewhere.
Well, that's comforting.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we'll be able to keep each other warm, like at least with our shared heat through the cardboard wall.
Okay.
As
long as there's a divider.
We're not living in the same box, Evan.
Good.
Yeah. Like you've got dogs, dude. Like I'm not a big dog person.
I mean, I also have a wife.
Wasn't even talking about her.
I
Just
know.
saying, like.
I mean, of all the reasons for you and I to not bunk together, I think that, like, wife probably outweighs dog.
Yes. Well, obviously, you and I have a similar outlook on life and things, but maybe that's not obvious. I don't know. But what would you say is something that you would document that you think is going to be gone? I know that
that's a good question.
Is something that
signals for sure
has been a popular thing. Like, what else would be harder to actually document before it's gone? And I'm asking you this too.
Man.
I know some things I would personally say. I'm not going to say right now because this is your interview, but I'd like to know what like you're from your outside.
I mean, so my current passion project I mentioned earlier that I always have to have one is writing my own train dispatching simulator. So for anyone out there who's played the old like Train Dispatcher 3 game from Softrail,
Never.
I believe that.
You should, because
like-
I just told you the truth. I've never played that.
I know, I do believe you.
'Cause I'm not a dork. Just kidding.
That's fair enough, to be honest.
I'm just lame.
Yeah, no, you're not as lame as me. I'm writing my own train dispatcher simulator. I've been working on it for like almost 6 years now.
You make better money than I do.
Well, you're unemployed.
I'm unemployed with a broken arm. Well, my arm's kind of not broken anymore. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
Anyway, so like I have a thing for signals anyway. And so that has absolutely been one of my things that I've been trying to do in the last few years. We went to New Mexico back right before COVID, 2019, and shot the semaphores out there on the Raton and Glorieta subdivisions.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. That was the last video I shot. You know, I used to.
Why don't you shoot video?
It's too bulky, man. I tell you, even photos have gotten too bulky for me. I have not edited a photo in over a year at this point.
Huh.
I've got SD cards full of photos just hanging around that I haven't touched.
I get that to some degree. Like I lost all of my stuff about a year ago, and then I replaced my cameras. I've got a pretty nice camera now, but even saying that, like I tried to simplify it with just like a higher quality. Like I'm gonna have this, and I'm gonna have this, and this will be like all I need, you know. And do I need any of this stuff? Do I need this thing that I'm recording with right now? No, it's not gonna, make.
It's a good way to kill a Friday night.
It's a good way to kill a Friday night, and it's kind of fun to try to do all this stuff. And there's lots of stories that could be told, There's people that I know around here, and that it'd be fun to share that experience with. But
I have my answer though. I have the real answer.
Go for it.
Locomotives that are actually powered by prime movers.
I've thought about that because when I worked in Durango last year, like they've recently switched to burning oil, which we're not going to cover that tonight because I could talk about that for 2 hours like we just did. And I didn't think I was going to talk to Song about this, but the availability of
coal,
like just carbon fuel, even in liquid form, like as recycled motor oil, there's still going to be like cooking oil and ironically, going back to like whaling days, not that we're going to go back to whaling, but just like just having animal fats and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like that might be the only like combustible thing that's available at some point besides wood, which doesn't work in an application like the Durango and Silverton. But I was very impressed with the conversions and getting to learn how to fire and operate locomotives on that railroad last year, having known them on the original fuel that they used. So at some point, we should talk about that because I think that would be kind of a fun little thing to record and talk about, and get some other people maybe that I worked with out there on the phone too. But yeah, that's a great topic that I think should be covered because internal combustion engines, I know, carbon prime movers and stuff are not going to be around. Minus, an electromagnetic pulse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've seen like Canadian Pacific, I think, which is the second time they've come up in this podcast, interestingly. I think so.
When was the first time?
That guy, Nick something, Coleman.
Oh yeah, but that was like for like 1 second, like he.
Yeah, but still, like
Yeah, good job, CP.
Yeah, I like CP for the record. The,
I like
2816. It's a beautiful locomotive.
I like the Royal Hudson. It's got that smoothed out front.
I'm sure you saw that they are currently in the process of restoring it, right?
No.
Yeah, like CP's been posting it on their social media feeds.
I have not read that.
Yeah. Well, as soon as they close this deal with KCS, which I'm fairly certain will happen, Keith Creel has already said that they are going to get that thing out and take it all the way to Mexico.
Nice. My only problem with that engine is it looks like a lipstick container.
I've got two problems with that engine. The first one is ditch lights.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yes. I'm surprised you didn't land on that immediately.
Okay, maybe I'm confused. Is the 2816 the one that has like that smoothed out front, or is it the one that has like the headlight jutting out like a normal engine?
It's a normal engine. It's got like a bluish tint.
Oh, okay, I don't mind that. Okay, so what's the Royal Hudson?
That is the Royal Hudson.
No, it's
I
not
think.
No, the Royal Hudson looks like a lipstick tube.
Oh, are you thinking of the 6060 or whatever?
No, that one looks like something that you would.
Oh! I know what you're talking about. Yes.
I was about to say something about cuticles, but
yeah, sorry, I know what you're talking about. You're thinking of like the similar to the one that was in the Steam program.
It was in the Steam program.
Coal Miner's Daughter.
What?
I think it was in Coal Miner's Daughter. Like it's sub for the 4501.
I don't know. I haven't seen that movie. Like Loretta Lynn, cool. I'm sorry.
I think that was the 2839. Is that right?
I don't know. Like I have not seen it. I think isn't Tommy Lee Jones in that?
I don't know. I think so.
I've seen 3 minutes of that movie and everyone's like, "Oh, this looks pretty cool," and that was 20 years ago. And I thought to myself, I should watch this. And he's like, "Come on, Loretta."
Well, yeah, I just remember, I think this actually was commented on in the documentary.
Yeah.
Like this Canadian Pacific locomotive in the hollers of Virginia.
Well, there you go. I mean, we've got Steamtown, so you've got Canadian engines in the hollers of Pennsylvania.
That's
so
true.
Kind of the same thing.
Well,
and they're also in Scranton, which is where
that documentary was filmed.
That documentary was filmed about paper.
Yeah.
So, I think those were all my questions I had for you about.
Well, hold on though. I want to revisit. I never got to say the second thing I didn't like about the 2816.
Go for it.
I
still have like 6 more questions for you, by the way, just so you know.
Okay. The front truck underneath the tender is weirdly offset to where it's like underneath the running boards. And it almost looks like it's helping support the weight of the rear of the locomotive, which it's probably not, but it looks that way. And it's super funky.
I'll have to look at that. I've never looked at that. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm not from Canada.
Yeah. I lived an hour from the Canadian border when I was in Idaho.
Maybe they did that because when it would get cold outside, the front truck of the tender would freeze and then shrink back underneath the tender. And that would help support the tender, until it warmed back up. And then when it got cold at night, it would move back forward, underneath the cab.
All of that sounds wrong.
I think those were thermodynamics is what we would call that nowadays.
Yeah. Look, I'm not a railroader, but I'm pretty sure you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong. There were some people I can introduce you to that would tell me that I'm right.
I would not believe them either.
But you should because you didn't interview them.
Because they're railroaders?
No, well, they are railroaders, and you didn't interview them. So, first mistake.
My bad.
So, strike. There's no strike against you, but yeah. All right.
It has been 6. It has been 6 years. They need to get over it.
I thought that it was. Anyway, your interview was way back in the day.
Well, that brings the show to an end. At least this part. There's one more part coming up, the last part. Part 3. This is number 2. There was one ahead of it. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, all for fun. And we appreciate everybody that's helped Evan produce this documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely on YouTube. It's not that hard to find. I mean, I think that we kind of discussed it enough that you should be able to figure it out. If you haven't, then you weren't paying attention or you got distracted. So, until the next time, Heute Morgen, and hello.